They say never ask a woman her age, but today, Grandmaster Anna Musichuk, you are officially 170 years old. But don't take offense by that. What I really mean is, you played a game like Paul Morphy, the first unofficial world champion. It was quite a spectacle. Now, Anna was white in this position in the women's candidates tournament, and she unfortunately did not start out with the best move, although she has the right spirit. She wants to go after the black king. What she should probably do is just drop the bishop back to c2, and then nearly any developing move for black, let's just say b5 to get the bishop out. She was going to play queen to d3, and this battery is super strong. We have ideas like sacrificing the knight to give checkmate on h7. And if black plays g6, well, then black weakens some dark squares and the attack continues. Now, unfortunately, after 30 minutes of thought, we often say long think, wrong think. She played bishop to g5. Now, here's what she was expecting. After takes, which happened, knight takes. Those knights are looking very intimidating. I am going to guess, I can't read Anna's mind, but I think she was hoping for knight takes pawn, and that would allow her queen to invade on h5, and she is totally winning this position because queen takes h7 can really only be stopped by h6. And then she has a couple of winning moves, but one idea is to take advantage of the overworked queen because she's trying to guard too many things and just play a move like rook takes knight. And then when the queen takes back, again, several winning moves. Queen takes f7 apparently is mate in about 8 moves, but who can think that far ahead? Not me. Knight takes h6 is actually mate in 3 because you have 2 legal moves. If your king goes this way, not only do I fork your king and your queen, I actually don't even take your queen, I just give checkmate. And because who doesn't love a good checkmate? Let's just take a look at the other possibility, which is pawn takes knight, but that opens up the 7th rank, and after queen f7, queen h7 would be mate. So after knight takes g5, she's putting all of her hopes on queen h5, but oh no, pawn to g6, that's a problem. Not only can our queen not use h5, but our knight can't even hop into h6 like before because we don't have a dark squared bishop anymore. So I have some bad news. This position is totally lost. However, you know, Anna, she is the Ukrainian voice of ChessKid. Maybe she watches some of my videos, not really for technical knowledge, maybe for inspiration, but I've got a video called What to Do When You're Losing, and she understands this, not because she loses very often, but because she's a good chess player. And instead of just bringing the knight back and losing this pawn and having zero compensation and getting ground down in 20 more moves, she makes things really complicated by playing e6, and that's what you want. You want to make the game so complicated that your opponent has a chance to mess up, and mess up is what black did, although I have to say, this is really tough. Now, the first thing we want to point out is if the knight is captured, she's totally winning again, because again, the square h5, that's worth the whole game. She would take this pawn, cutting off the queen's protection of h7, and no matter where black's king moves, queen h5 is totally devastating. That would not be good for black. So let's go back to the position after the move e6. Apparently, the winning move was takes, and that was played. And then she takes with the rook, and then the weird winning move is knight to e5. Super complicated, super weird, and not found by black. Did you find it? Maybe you did, I don't know. But black didn't find it, and black was a pretty strong player too. So black played the move knight to e7, and after knight to e7, now we've got some things going on. Now black could have made the game really boring by just taking, just to show you what would have happened after takes and takes. The queen would have moved somewhere, we would have captured the rook, the rook would have captured, Anna would have moved her knight back, the game would have been equal, and I would not have been making a video out of this. So let's not worry about that variation. It would probably just result in a draw. By the way, you guys already know this, but if the pawn takes, dun, 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 the queen gets access to h5. Probably the bishop would take the pawn first though, and Anna would not be worse. Okay, so rook takes e6, knight to e7, that was played in the game. Okay, and now we have knight h4. It's very important she retreats the knight to this square, because if the bishop goes to h6, she needs to back up the g5 knight with the f3 knight, so that if the bishop ever captures the rook, she can always take back and get her exchange back. So very clever to go back here. Also puts pressure on g6, which I'm sure you noticed. That's going to be important in about 2 seconds, because black played c4, and here she goes. She makes the game super complicated. Actually, it's the best move. Bishop takes g6. It is a line that is so complicated that the computer even changes its evaluation as we go through the process. Okay, here's the game. Black took. She took back with her knight, the correct move, of course. And here, bishop takes. Okay, she's down a whole bunch, okay? She's down a rook and a minor piece. Now it's actually a big decision. Now, the reason we can't quite call her Paul Morphy is because she's not 170 years old or from Louisiana or, any of that stuff. But she had only about a minute on her clock, maybe less. And so she bailed out to a forced draw, which I can't really blame her. Queen h5 was played, and amazingly, it's a forced draw. First of all, we got checkmate coming up. And if you decide to stop that checkmate, she'll just checkmate on a different square. So the only move is knight takes, played in the game, of course. And after queen takes, weirdly, black cannot avoid the draw. Let's just go over some lines. Now in the game, the king just moved to h8 and the queen just gave check. Simple enough, okay? And after queen h5, you really can't do much. Remember, your king can never move here because there's a royal fork coming up on e6. So when the king moves, the queen just gives check. Now, if you try to block with your bishop, she would have taken this bishop. Now, you don't want to go this way because who doesn't like a good checkmate, right? And if you go the other way, the queen very fortunately has access to that square. And in fact, in this position, white would even be winning because after the king goes back, you don't have to check again. You can play this check, force the king to a bad square, and play the royal fork, okay? Now, black could have blocked with the queen, but if the queen blocks, it's again a draw because queen takes, and when your king moves, I check you on this square. And amazingly, you can't even play queen h6 because knight goes to f7 with yet another royal fork. That is our hero of the day, that knight on g5. Okay, so it's a forced draw and can't really blame her for taking it. In fact, the other way to play this would have been the full Paul Morphy, is not even clearly better, although with a little bit more time, she may have played it. Honestly, black would have to play perfectly just to survive. The full Paul Morphy was knight takes bishop, and when the queen moves, we take this bishop with queen g4 check coming, so black has to take. After queen g4 check, king f7, the rook just comes over to defend the knight, and black actually has to play really perfectly just to survive. Here's one sample line. Rook to g8, and the fun is just beginning. She would have played queen h5 check, and here, rook to g6 blocking. After queen h7 check, the king would probably go back to e8, but after king to e8, then the move knight f4 happens. By the way, if the king had walked to f6, knight f4 would have amazingly still happened. And after knight f4, the knight is not hanging because there's a mate coming up on e7, and black has to try this move rook f6, but then she would have hit black with knight takes d5 because this queen, as has been a theme so far, is constantly overworked. That triple attacks the knight, it attacks the rook, and black has to play a move like rook f7. Then queen to g8 check. The rook, of course, has to block, otherwise the rook is just lost. Then queen to g5, putting pp on the pp. This knight is now attacked more times than it's defended. And after rook f7, then she almost certainly would have found rook to e6. What an amazing move. It seems like everything is hanging for black, but in this position, everything has a problem if it gets captured, okay? So in this position, if you take the knight, I can just take back because your knight is pinned. We'll get to this move in a minute. If you try a move like queen to d7, you're going to get hit with queen to g8 check, and when you block knight f6, one of the most picturesque positions I can remember in a chess game. So if we go back after rook e6, black would have to take. She would have played knight c7, king d7, knight takes, king takes, queen to g4 check. She would have picked off this pawn, and Anna would have had queen and 4 pawns for 2 rooks and a knight. I have no idea what's going on in this game. Computer says 0.00, but I think it's because the computer is lazy. It doesn't actually want to figure it out. One thing's for sure, her sister playing in the same room would probably have had a heart attack by now, but that would have been a crazy finish to the game, and it would not have even been the finish. So there you go. Sometimes when you get in a worse position, if you make things super complicated, good things happen. A well-earned draw from Anna Musichuk. Good luck to her the rest of the way.